we'd like to acknowledge that this podcast is being performed on the Toronto traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit.
And we'd also like to acknowledge that this podcast is being filmed on the traditional Miami lands of the Tequesta peoples and the Miccosukee peoples. We highly encourage you to check out and learn more about these Indigenous groups. They're fascinating. Thank you very much and enjoy the podcast. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Cross Continents Chats podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Rachel Bishop in Toronto, Ontario, joined by my friend and colleague, Charlie Wayman in Miami, Florida. About halfway through the show, we're going to also have a very special guest, friend of the show. You might have seen his video in the last podcast. Aidan Mueller will be joining us from Liverpool, where he will give a first-hand account of the post-celebration of Liverpool F.C. in the streets of Liverpool and what that was like, just being in that atmosphere. So we're just going to get started with some other sports, though, before he joins us. So starting off with some NFL news today. Former Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton just signed a one-year deal with the New England Patriots to replace Tom Brady, who, of course, left the only team he's ever known to sign in Tampa. So what are your thoughts on this deal, Charlie?
Well, first of all, as a Dolphins fan, God damn it. As a Dolphins fan and a Jets fan and as a Bills fan, they are upset because they were hoping for the New England Patriots to be bad this year. Cam Newton is a star. He can throw the ball. He's got mad wheels, something that Tom Brady doesn't have. So think about a Tom Brady who can throw at a moment's notice, but then put in a guy who has more creativity and he can actually run and create plays. He can scramble. He can get out of the pocket. And with that, it's a whole new look New England offense. And it's going to be interesting to see what Bill Belichick's going to come up with, because the same old systems of doing short passes just to gain 10 yards and so on and so forth, that's not really going to work because Cam Newton is not that type of quarterback. Maybe they're going to go for another Super Bowl run because it's looking like it. As a football fan, that is a heck of a deal. I saw it coming for New England, but as a Dolphins fan, I'm just crying inside because that means that he's going to tear up the Dolphins, and we actually kind of needed a season where we do a little bit better because that would be really nice. And I always love to see the Patriots lose. So yeah, this is going to be hurtful, but I really think it's a good fit.
All right. So you think that they have a chance to win the Super Bowl now?
Yes. If Cam Newton blends in as well as I think he's going to be, they're going to be a playoff team and they're going to be really, really something.
So what about all the analysts? He's saying that he's going to be fighting for the starting role with the other quarterback.
He's definitely going to be fighting for the role with Stidham because Stidham has, he's been there for a couple of years. It's his chance to show what he's got. But the difference is he's up against Cam Newton. Cam Newton's been to a Super Bowl. Cam Newton's been to the playoffs. He's a proven playoff performer. He's just been on teams that, are either rebuilding or had a couple of good years and then, collapsed. And with that, being in a Belichick offense that's won 6 Super Bowls, he's going to have a lot to learn because it's a very complicated offensive system. Belichick doesn't make it easy, so he's got a lot to learn. But if Cam Newton just keeps an open mind, lets that Superman ego go down a little bit, I think he is going to shine in New England, as much as I hate to admit it.
Well, thank you very much for that insight. That will certainly be interesting to watch. And it seems as though every year we think New England is getting worse. They're still just as good as ever before. So now moving on to a different football player, another controversial player, but still in the NFL. So former Pittsburgh wide receiver Antonio Brown, also former Masked Singer contestant, by the way, posted a video on Instagram of him working out with Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson, whom everyone loves, and people don't seem to like Antonio Brown. So it was very interesting. Brown hasn't played a full season in the NFL since 2018, and he's, of course, been dealing with legal issues that he dealt with all last season. So do you think he'll ever play again in the NFL? Why or why not?
Well, the problem with Antonio Brown is it's not that he's not talented. Antonio Brown is one of the best receivers in recent history. In his 10 seasons in the NFL, he had over 11,000 receiving yards. Usually a very good season for a top receiver is over 1,000 yards. So he's already over the average for a top receiver. So he's definitely got the talent. Of course, he's in his 30s, but he still can move. But the problem with him is his mentality. I know he's got his legal issues, but he's just mentally there. He thinks that he is the greatest human, of all time. He thinks that he deserves to play, but the thing is, it's his behavior. It's his behavior. That's the only way to put it. And I don't think teams want to deal with that. Yes, he's talented. Yes, he's great. But the fact that he played 2 games with the New England Patriots, and even they dumped him. Bill Belichick, who is a no-nonsense coach who could literally turn the worst player in the NFL into a challenge, a competitive player that actually shows up on the field. He actually got dumped by the New England Patriots. So in my opinion, if you can't even make it in New England, where Belichick is known to turn washout players into stars, for example, Chris Hogan, that is an example. Yeah, I don't know how he's going to do it. It'd be nice to see him play because he's a very talented player, but the man is a diva. The man clearly just mentally isn't all there, in my opinion. So that's what's holding him back. It's not his talent or anything like that. And I don't think he's going to be in the NFL. I think he should be sticking to singing game shows. That's probably his best bet.
He didn't even last on The Masked Singer. He got eliminated first.
There you go. He didn't last very long on that. Who knows? Maybe he's on Dancing with the Stars next,
So why did he want to leave Pittsburgh in the first place?
Well, he wanted to leave Pittsburgh because he was demanding crazy money, and he was not, he was a cancer in the locker room with the team because he wanted to become, he wanted to be like this god, and he wanted Ben Roethlisberger to pass to him more and all this kind of stuff. Ben Roethlisberger's the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then eventually Pittsburgh just said, screw this guy. We got another talented receiver who's just as good, and he's cheaper, and he's more of a team player. So then he got let go. There were another couple of issues here and there with his legal things. And then the New England Patriots take him on. He plays 2 games with the Patriots. He plays well, and then they dump him because of these issues, because of, more issues and attitude issues. And because of that, man, it's unless he has some serious, he found Jesus or something, I think he needs to really change his ways, because sure, he's got the talent, but like I said, he just doesn't have the attitude, and he thinks the world of himself.
Didn't he refuse to wear the new safety helmet or something too like that? Wasn't that a big thing?
Well, that's the whole thing, is that he had a deal with the Oakland Raiders, and they dumped him because he created this whole fight that he didn't like the new helmets. So the Raiders and the NFL sent him a bunch of different helmets for him to try, saying this is the required helmet and this is what you got to do because of safety reasons. Your helmet is 10 years old, so you need an updated helmet for your safety. And the guy basically made a huge stink, all because he wanted to get out of Oakland after he signed there in the first place. He decided he wanted to get out of Oakland, created this huge stink about a helmet, and that was that. And then after that, when he had his stint with New England, nobody heard a word about helmets. So what that says to me is that he just didn't like Oakland and wanted to get out of Oakland after he signed it like a few months before. So it's just like, he's just not all there, in my opinion. Heck of a football player, and it's a shame to see his career go down the tubes, but I don't know. He's got to fix his attitude before he gets back on the field.
So do you think a CFL team will take him on? Because they seem to take on these NFL reclamation projects.
A CFL team definitely could. They definitely do those NFL reclamation projects, but we'll see if they go up with his attitude. Because yeah, like I said, like I've been saying, it's not his talent. He could be a superstar in the NFL and become a Hall of Famer. He's that good, but he's got attitude issues.
All right. So okay, so that will be very interesting to see what that happens with the Antonio Brown situation, and the CFL could definitely take him on, but a lot of NFL players also are remiss to play there because the pay is a lot less and the rules are different as well, right? So that's another issue. So now moving on to the NHL, which is both of our favorite sports. So out of the possible, as we know from last week's podcast, the NHL draft lottery was total chaos, and the team who has the best chance to draft Alexi Lafreniere, who will have Alexi Lafreniere, is a team to be determined, a placeholder team from one of the losers of the play-in series. So this play-in series is a chance just to get to the playoffs. So these teams now have a combined 12% chance to get to the playoff, to get to Alexi Lafreniere, these play-in losers, as it were, in the second draft lottery. And this second draft lottery will happen after the play-in series. So out of these teams that has a chance to get them, so Pittsburgh, Columbus, Montreal, Florida, Carolina, etc., which team, besides the Florida Panthers, obviously your team, would you like to see draft Alexi Lafreniere, and why?
You know, it would have taken me a long time to think about this, but it took me 2 seconds to figure this out on why it makes the most sense. And no, it's not Montreal. I know what you folks are thinking. The Québécois in Montreal, it totally makes sense on that front. But the team that I think he would fit in the most, the team that really needs a number one center, a true number one center superstar, the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers have a bunch of talented players. Mika Zibanejad, he's scoring goals like crazy. You have, of course, Artemi Panarin, the breadman, who is a proven veteran and he is one of the best wingers in the league. You also have potential superstar in Capo Caco as well. That team has a lot of youth. That team has a lot of talent on the offensive side. Their defense is trying to be more of a puck-moving defense, which is always good. Also, they're going through a goaltending change with the end years of Henrik the King Lundqvist and going into Shesterkin. I think I said his name right. Shesterkin, and the other Russian goaltender that is escaping my mind right now.
Georgiev, Alexander Georgiev.
Thank you, Alexander Georgiev. That team is really, they need a superstar because as good as Zibanejad is, he's not a number one center. He's a number two center. So putting in Alexi Lafreniere with Artemi Panarin on the wing, oh my God, that's going to be a force for years to come. That is something that I can see as think about it, if you had a player like Sidney Crosby drafted to the Penguins and you had a winger, a veteran winger that wasn't Chris Kunitz, but that was Artemi Panarin instead, damage could be dealt and the Rangers could actually end their cup drought in time, not at this moment. So I really think the team that would really fit in the most would be the New York Rangers.
I was not expecting you to say that, to be honest. I would have thought Carolina Hurricanes is where you're going with this.
I was, but I think they could get away with some good years, depending on how well Vincent Trocheck plays. Because I have faith in him. He's scored 70 points before. He's a very talented player. He could be their number one center.
I think he's definitely capable of being a number one center for sure. It just depends on his injuries, right? But I think you made a good case with the New York Rangers. It would definitely be neat for such an historic franchise like that to have that franchise player, because as you said, their franchise player, who's Henrik Lundqvist, is getting old. They haven't really had a franchise
center
forward since Rick Nash. I don't think they've ever had a franchise center in recent memory.
Well, I think the last franchise center I guess they ever had was not even a player that was drafted to their system. It was like Marc Messier. That was pretty much like their last super elite player.
Well,
and he was an Oiler to start with. He wasn't
right.
actually a Ranger, but it was Marc Messier was like the last elite center that they had.
And that was the last time that they won the cup as well. It was with Marc Messier.
1994.
Exactly. So that would be interesting to see the Quebecois guy in the bright lights of New York City. That'd be very interesting. But I could see that. I could see that is a possible team. Purely for selfish reasons, I want the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Of course.
Because I think he could carry on the mantle of Crosby and Malkin once they retire. And they're getting old. They're not getting any younger. And he already would have his French-Canadian buddy in Chris Letang to mentor him, which would be awesome. And they could chirp in French together. And it'd be beautiful to see Crosby, Malkin, and Lafreniere make sweet, sweet music. And then you have your 1, 2, 3 for your centers, and Bukestad, you could play him on the wing, or McCann. And then you have your franchise center when Crosby and Malkin retire. It'd be great. Or I'd love to see him on the Maple Leafs as well. Toronto Maple Leafs or Pittsburgh Penguins would be my two choices. Obviously, I'd love for the Leafs to win a Stanley Cup to end their 53-year drought. Don't think that's happening this year, but I'd rather see that. But if I don't get that, Alexis Lafreniere is a pretty good second pick.
Yeah, and I'll add a couple of minutes on the Panthers. As nice as that would be, in my opinion, that would be too much. They're stacked at center. They're in great shape at center. Of course, you're not going to replace Alexander Barkov. The guy's still like 25 years old, so there's no way that he's going to win the first spot. And then they have so much talent down the middle. You have upcoming players in Henrik Borgstrom. You also have a potential elite winger in Owen Tippett coming up. The Panthers don't really need another center. It was heartbreaking losing Vincent Trocheck, but I think the Panthers, they have a future at center, and I don't really think they need a player of his quality, especially that Barkov is still only like 25 years old. So he's not even in his prime yet, and he's still one of the best two-way players in the league, who was robbed by Sean Couturier of the Selke Trophy. That is a ranting with Charlie moment. Barkov deserved it, not Sean Couturier. Sorry to take that from you, Rachel. But okay. Yeah, I would love to see him on the Panthers, but also I don't really think the Panthers need him, in my opinion.
They probably don't need him. I mean, the Penguins... The Leafs don't really need him. The Penguins would need him. The Leafs don't really need him, but it would still be nice. But the Leafs could never afford him. That's the thing. When his contract would be out, the Leafs would be in a huge problem with salary cap. So
they're kind of already going to be in a little bit anyway. So with the way their talent is going. So yeah.
All right. So we are now joined by a friend of the show, Aidan Mueller, joining us from Liverpool, where it is very late at night / very early in the morning. So thank you for this, Aidan. So these last couple questions are just for him specifically. So now that Liverpool has won the league and the offseason is coming up, what do you think should be the next point of action for the club? Are there any specific players you think they should go after, or do you think they should just look in-house for the next player?
I think it's quite a strange situation, to be honest, because I think the attractiveness of the club has never been like so high, I think, in my lifetime anyway, because obviously we've won the league. We have one of the best, maybe the best manager in the world, and we have one of the best teams in the world as well. So I feel like we can attract the best of players. But then on the other hand, obviously we have the COVID pandemic, which has had quite an effect on the financial situation within clubs. So I think that we're probably not going to make any big signings this summer. I don't think so anyway. I mean, if you have a look at like the newspapers and stuff, that Liverpool, it seems to be linked to like pretty much every player there is, like, Mbappe, Neymar, Jadon Sancho, I wouldn't believe much of that. But yeah, I can't. I mean, if a player like that was to join, then obviously that would be amazing. But I can't see any of them joining. I mean, like, I think the most likely would probably be Sancho, but again, it's the money. But yeah, I can't. I think we do need to strengthen. The main places would be centre back and an attacking player as well to cover for Mane or Firmino or Salah. Because if one of those gets injured, then if one of them gets injured for like an extended amount of time, then I feel like we might have a few issues. And especially with Mane and Salah going to the African Cup of Nations in early 2021 for I think about a month. So obviously that's going to leave gaps in the team. So yeah, I think it would be nice to sign an attacking player, but I can't think of many players at the moment who we could sign. So yeah, I think it would be a good summer if we keep hold of all the key players and we maybe make one signing, maybe in centre back maybe. But yeah, I can't see us doing much. Klopp has said we're not going to be spending like millions and millions of pounds, given the situation. So yeah, I don't expect a busy summer, to be honest. But then again, stranger things have happened, and Liverpool seem to do a lot of transfer business behind closed doors, and we seem to not hear much about players, and then suddenly they just get signed. Like I think a couple of years ago, it was with Fabinho. There wasn't that much speculation about him joining Liverpool, but then one day he just joined. So maybe there's a lot of activity going on behind closed doors, and we just don't know about it. They do seem to keep things quiet. So I guess only time will tell. But what I can say is that I think Klopp knows what he's doing, and we have been quite successful in the transfer market over the past 4 years, I would say. So I wouldn't say I'm concerned, and I don't think any Liverpool fan would be concerned either.
Yeah, you do really like Jadon Sancho, though. You would like to see him in Liverpool. You've talked to me about him before.
I have said that I would absolutely love him at Liverpool. Yeah, but I think maybe 1 or 2 more years in Germany would do him quite good. Because I think is he still only 19? Is he, or 20?
I think he's 20 now.
Yeah. Still, obviously quite young. And he's got a lot of potential. But but I mean, it's nice to see these young English players doing quite well. But hopefully he keeps it up, and because sometimes we see a lot of young players doing well, but then they just maybe they get injured, or they just hit a point where they don't develop anymore. So I just hope that he continues developing.
Okay. That was a very thorough and in-depth answer. Thank you for that. So now moving on to something more fun. You were at the festivities on Thursday night when Liverpool won the title. You sent some great videos and photos. So can you describe what the atmosphere is like in the city center? City center means downtown, by the way, for our North American viewers. That's what they say in the UK. Can you describe what that was like?
Yeah, so it was obviously they won it on the Thursday night. I was watching the match just at home. Obviously it was Chelsea against Manchester City. But I could hear everyone when Chelsea scored. I could hear everyone cheer because I don't know. People must have been watching it together. I don't know where because there's no pubs open. But I heard people cheer and stuff. So yeah, that I heard them cheer for the first goal, and then obviously the second goal. and then I think that's when people started to like come out into the streets and stuff. And I think about 10 minutes after kickoff, after the game finished, I went out, and there were just so many cars. There were loads of cars like driving about with like Liverpool flags and like Liverpool shirts like hanging out the cars and stuff. And a lot of people were beeping their horns. And then there were loads of people. I just saw loads of people getting dropped off in the city centre, either by taxis or by like other cars. And then I heard about the scene outside Anfield. I didn't go outside Anfield, but I saw that there were. I think at first there were like 200 people, but then it went up to like
Oh wow,
1,000 people, like more, like way more.
That's serious.
so much for
Yeah,
physical distancing.
Yeah, like there wasn't. To be fair, there wasn't any social distancing, and I didn't see anyone with a mask on as well. I think people didn't want a mask because everyone was singing, and people had like flares and stuff, like the smoke bombs, and there were a lot of fireworks, actually, a lot of fireworks, and yeah, it was just it was a bit strange because there wasn't much open, obviously, because the pub's still open here. They're actually opening this weekend. But yeah, so it wasn't open. So people they were going to like a supermarket or just a little corner shop and going to buy. They just you just saw people. Just walking about with loads of like alcohol, like like just like a typical British thing to do. But yeah, that went on ages, pretty much. I think I was out until like 1:30 a.m. But even when I left, there were hundreds, maybe over 1,000 people just in. They all seem to segregate in like a specific part of the city, and just people singing, and there were a lot of police out as well, blocking off certain places and stuff. So yeah, that was Thursday night, but I think Friday night was even worse, to be honest. I'm not sure whether you heard about that.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. When they had when they had so many people and they started getting violent, and they threw a firework. Some fans threw a firework in the Liver building, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Liver building, for our viewers, is co-owned. It's this historic building on Pierside by the waterfront, and it's co-owned by one of the Everton owners. So Everton's the other team in Liverpool. So maybe that's why they threw the firework into the Liver building. Apparently, the damage was quite extensive too. So that's really that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think there was over £10,000 of damages, just because of a firework. I think there's only one firework as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I didn't understand that, to be honest. I think Thursday night I can understand, because it was it was the first time in 30 years. Sometimes for some people it's the first time that Liverpool have ever won the league in their lifetime, like me, obviously. So most people who were out at the time, it was definitely people under the age of 30. So obviously it was the first time seeing Liverpool win the league. So I could kind of understand it. I think it was bound to happen. It was definitely going to happen, because it just, Liverpool fans just want to, they're good fans, and they just want to celebrate. And yeah, but obviously Friday night, that I think that was a bit, I don't know, I think that was a bit uncalled for in terms of, I think Thursday night was like the celebrations, and then Friday night, I don't know why they continued onto Friday night and onto Saturday night as well. I think because the weather was good as well, so it just all got a bit crazy, and obviously the British media over here have, like, they had a field day because they always bash football fans.
They do.
And especially Liverpool fans as well.
Yeah, they do.
Everyone seems to hate Liverpool fans. So everyone was like, "Oh, this is why Liverpool shouldn't have won the league," or like, "I hate Liverpool fans," and like I even saw some people saying, "Oh, take the league title off them."
What?
Yeah, obviously that wouldn't happen, but yeah, I think it just people will find any way to hate on Liverpool. But yeah, I mean I can see what people are saying, but I think we shouldn't forget that it was only a tiny percentage of fans, and most fans did condemn what happened on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
Including me. So yeah,
and the team too.
I think Klopp posted an article, something about condemning the fans as well, or he just said like, let's celebrate later when everything is okay. Yeah, so hopefully that can happen.
So it sounds like the party was really crazy, but obviously the ride's not good, and the person who threw the firework, I think he did get charged, but it sounds like it was pretty wild. As we know, UK fans like to party too. So the Klopp point actually brings me to the last question. So what are your thoughts on how Liverpool should celebrate? Should they have a proper celebration and a parade once the whole COVID pandemic is over, even if it's not till a year from now?
Well,
Well,
what are you saying?
No, it's just so they can celebrate with the fans. Like, should they have a proper parade with the fans?
Well, if it's next year, it's not. I feel like it wouldn't feel the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope we can have one this summer, but you just never know with the pandemic. I mean, things are getting a little bit better here. Things are starting to open up. So. I mean, you never know. Maybe something can be organised by the club. But whatever it will be organised, it won't be small because, I mean, like, last year when Liverpool won the Champions League, I think there were like 500,000 people.
Yeah.
Coming. I think a lot of people came from outside Liverpool. So because we've got fans all over the country, and even fans all over the world.
Yeah, you do.
A lot of people came from other countries to see them, to watch the Champions League final, and also watch them bring the trophy back as well. So I can imagine that something like that will happen again if they do have something organised by the club. So yeah, I honestly. I don't know. I hope. I mean, I hope we can, and I hope we can do it safely. But yeah, maybe the club would set up maybe like a smaller event, maybe at Anfield or something, or at like another place. But yeah, you just never know. It's quite disappointing because we don't win it in 30 years, and then when we do win it, this happens. Yeah. So it's just it's disappointing. But I mean, hopefully this kind of if there's no celebrations, then hopefully this kind of motivates the players and gets them to win it next year as well.
Yeah,
that would be good. But yeah. I mean, maybe I'm trying to think of like the latest they could have it. The season finishes at the end of July, and then the next one starts September, I think.
Yep.
Mid-September. Yeah.
Yep. September.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I don't think it would make much sense to have something, some to have an event after the season starts. It just wouldn't feel the same, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it would have to be before the next season starts.
Yeah, That's a short window, though. And Aidan mentioned that the parade last year had 500,000 people. That's roughly the population of Liverpool. So basically, the whole city came out for the parade last year. So that's a lot of people. So
Yeah, but I think all the Everton fans left the city.
all the Everton fans probably did leave the city, right?
Yeah. But that's fine. It's only like 10,000 people. So yeah, I think they went into hiding. So
Yeah.
there were just thousands of people, and hopefully we can do something like that for the Premier League. But I'm not sure, obviously. Maybe we'll get a vaccine quite quickly, but who knows?
That's why I'm lucky that Toronto Raptors won the basketball. Like, we won the NBA title last season because we were able to have 2 million people to the parade, which was just insane, which is almost the whole population of Toronto. Like, again, people coming from outside the city to join. So it was pretty cool. So it was really similar. So that concludes then the question portion of today. So now we're going to go on to our special segments. So we're going to start with sports spectacles, which Charlie does. But today we're going to let Aidan start with sports spectacles. So his matches to watch for the Premier League.
So I think a few to watch out for. So on the 8th, the Wednesday, Sheffield United versus Wolves. That should be quite a good one, I think. I think they're two teams that everyone loves, to be honest. It's hard not to like Sheffield United and Wolves just because of. I mean, Sheffield United this season have been amazing. It's crazy how good they've been. And Wolves have been good as well. So that should be a good match. I think they're both competing for maybe the top 7, top 6 finish. So that should be a good one. And obviously on the Wednesday as well, it's Brighton versus Liverpool as well, which I'll be watching. I think after last night's loss, we need to win a few games. And I think Brighton are doing quite bad as well. They're fighting for survival, so they need a couple of wins as well. So that could be an interesting watch, but hopefully Liverpool win that. Moving on to Thursday, there's not that much. Just I would say Bournemouth versus Tottenham, purely because of the fact that again Bournemouth are fighting for the survival as well. So usually with teams in the bottom part of the table who are fighting, especially at this stage of the season, usually it's quite an interesting game when they're going against teams who also have something to play for, like Spurs have something to play for. They can finish in the top 6 or something. And then on Saturday, again Sheffield United, I would watch them against Chelsea. Depending on what Sheffield United do in the next week, they could be competing for the top 4 by then. So that could be a battle for the top 4. And then Liverpool, I'll be watching Liverpool versus Burnley. Not exactly the best match, but hopefully again we win that. I'm hoping we get a few wins and we beat Manchester City and they set so it's 100 points they had. I think if we win 5 out of the 6 games left, then we will do that. I would say Sunday, so that's Sunday the 12th of July. A big one is the North London derby, so Tottenham versus Arsenal. That's usually a good watch. 2 teams that hate each other, so that's normally quite a good game. Hopefully it's quite aggressive. It'd be a bit strange because there's no fans, so usually the fans add to the dynamic of the game, and they kind of push on the plays and stuff. But I think that there's still a lot of hatred for the teams. Tottenham hate Arsenal, Arsenal hate Tottenham. So I don't think they need the fans to hate each other. So yeah, I think that's definitely one to watch on the Sunday.
All right. Thank you for those. Those looks like some really interesting games for sure. So do you have any more, Charlie, for the rest of the leagues?
Yes, I did. Aidan, great job on that. Thank you so much. I am really looking forward to Tottenham hopefully losing twice, because it's always wonderful when Jose Mourinho loses and to see how mad he gets. So I love that. I'm just going to do this real quick. On the Wednesday, just across the pond for our North American fans that might be one of the 200 fans that follow the MLS, but MLS is back. You have Orlando versus Inter Miami. So it's essentially a battle of Florida, but for Major League Soccer. I feel for Inter Miami, other than it being, well, it's my hometown team now, thanks to David Beckham, but they haven't even played their home opener because they got shut down due to coronavirus, and this is their inaugural season. So I really hope they get a win, because this has been a rough year for the franchise. It's pretty brutal. I'm going to go into Thursday. We have more MLS. We've got New York City FC and Philadelphia, which should be pretty solid. Also, New England and Montreal are also going to be an interesting game. Montreal is now coached by Thierry Henry, so that's something that should be quite interesting to see what kind of expertise he can bring to Major League Soccer. Then the other game that I really have that I thought would be really interesting is in Serie A. It's Juventus, who win the title every year, unfortunately, but they might not win it this year because they're playing Atalanta. Atalanta is another top 4 team, and let's see if they can just bring Juve down a notch, because it'd be fantastic. Even though Cristiano Ronaldo is a heck of a player, it would be fantastic if they lose and they can lose the title for the first time in like 9 years. That would be amazing. And those are my sports spectacles for the week.
All right. Those look like some great games for sure.
Thanks a lot.
Rachel Bishop in Toronto, joined by Charlie Wayman in Miami and Aidan Mueller in Liverpool, UK. And Aidan and I met when I was doing my exchange in Liverpool, if people are wondering. So, yeah, that's how we know each other. Hope you guys all stay safe and have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you in our next podcast. So now I'm moving on to the final segment here. This is the marketplace. So this is where I talk about some of the transfers that could be happening or signings, etc. So they're mostly with hockey this week. So the first thing that I noticed was that the Carolina Hurricanes replaced. So the Carolina Hurricanes will not be bringing back Rick Dudley. So Rick Dudley, if you know hockey, if you followed it for a while, you probably know his name. It's a very familiar name. He was responsible for bringing Dustin Byfuglien to Atlanta when he was GM of the Atlanta Thrashers before they moved to Winnipeg. He was replaced when they moved to Winnipeg, but he also was largely the architect of the 2004 Stanley Cup winning team, Tampa Bay Lightning. He largely built that team as well. He was the senior vice president of hockey ops for the Carolina Hurricanes, but they will not renew his contract as his contract has expired. And funnily enough, the GM of Carolina right now, who is Don Waddell, actually was the one who Rick Dudley replaced in Atlanta as GM, because Don Waddell moved up to president. So that's pretty interesting as well. So they have a history with each other. And something else that is kind of related to this news, it's a bit more upsetting for me at least, is that the team is still in talks to bring back play-by-play man John Forsland. He has not been confirmed yet. Of course, he's worked for NBC, and he's also the team play-by-play man for the Hurricanes. He's one of the best in the business, in my opinion. Normally, American announcers aren't as good, but John Forsland is a very good announcer for NBC. It'd be a shame if Carolina did not bring him back, and I really hope that they do, because, as I mentioned, he's a very good announcer. He way better than the usual crew with Doc Emmerich and Pierre Maguire. John Forsland with Brendan Burke is usually a much better crew to do games, as well as Brian Boucher. That's usually a really good tandem right there. So that will be something interesting to follow. It could be money related. Maybe they lost money due to COVID, so they can't bring these guys back. It could be a factor. We'll never know about that because Forsland's been there forever. So we talked a lot about football today, but here's another something more about football that we talked about this player last week. So Ava DuVernay and Colin Kaepernick have teamed up with Netflix to make a series about Colin Kaepernick's life, a 6-part miniseries about Colin Kaepernick's life. Ava DuVernay will be directing it. If you know Ava DuVernay, it's because she's done movies like The Central Park 5. She's done a lot of kind of these Black Power movies and TV shows, so it's not surprising that she is attached to this project. If you want something about Black Power, she's definitely our go-to director for this one. She also directed A Wrinkle in Time. That was a really popular movie when it came out. So the Colin Kaepernick story is they're working together, but of course they're going to be probably both producers, and there's no casting yet, but it's not going to be documentary. It's going to be like reenactment biopic, 6-part series about his life growing up with this predominantly white family and how he faced lots of racism growing up in a predominantly white neighborhood as a half black boy, and then his rise to the NFL and how he became an activist. So that's something that's kind of transferring to the small screen, as it were, and again related to sports. So Colin Kaepernick in the news yet again. And kind of the last thing that we have for the marketplace this week is the Canadian Hockey League. So that's the major junior hockey league in Canada. Just held its import draft. And the Halifax Mooseheads, once again, drafted a Swiss player, and they have a very good history with Swiss players. So Atelier Biasca from Switzerland, they drafted him 5th overall. They passed on their second pick at 26th overall because they already had one European player, and that's Senna Peters from Belgium, and they actually released Marcel Brinka from his contract because you cannot have 3 Europeans on your team at one time. I didn't know this. I guess that's part of the rule, or 3 import players. So Marcel Brinka was Czech, so they released him, and they kept Senna Peters, who won the Rookie of the Year last year for Halifax, and they also added Attilio Biasca. So Attilio Biasca played for the U17 team last year for Zurich. He was second on his team in points. He had 29 points in 34 games. And as I've already mentioned, which is very good. And as I've already mentioned, Halifax has a great history with Swiss players. 2 players that come to mind are Timo Meier, who of course was taken 9th overall by the San Jose Sharks in the NHL entry draft. He's one of the best young players in the league. He's gone to the Stanley Cup Final, so he has experience, and he's now in a very good deal with San Jose. He's also scored 30 goals in the league, so he's a proven goal scorer, and he can also play a physical game. So he's kind of that rare breed, and he honed his game at Halifax, and I got to watch him live, which was a pleasure. They also have Nico Hischier, who only played 1 season in Halifax because then he was drafted 1st overall by the New Jersey Devils and then made the team out of training camp. He hasn't had as much of a smooth of a ride just because he hasn't had the same talent. But when Taylor Hall was on the New Jersey Devils, Nico Hischier was the 2nd highest scoring player on the team after Taylor Hall. He had over 50 points as a rookie, which is pretty good. And he's another very talented player. So that's 2 Swiss players right there that they had a lot of success with. And the Mooseheads, as I mentioned before, have a lot of success with the Europeans. So whether it's Otto Sompi, Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, Nikolai Ehlers is also drafted the same year as Timo Meier, but 8th overall. Or you have someone like Jakub Voracek, Halifax Moosehead, who's now, of course, on the Philadelphia Flyers, unfortunately, and he's very good, which really pains me as a Penguins fan. So Halifax is very good at drafting these European players. So I will be looking out for Attilio Biasca to be another really strong European player and to be a high draft pick, 1st round again, if he continues in the trend of their other European draft picks. And he said his favorite player to watch is Connor McDavid, so that's not a surprise. So if he models this game after Connor McDavid, then the Mooseheads are getting a really good player. So I'll definitely watch out for him and he adds to the great complement of forwards that they've already drafted this year in the American draft and in the regular draft. And I think he'll fit in really nicely on that team. So I think Halifax Mooseheads, and they're really on the right position to kind of rebuild. They know how to rebuild and get good really quickly, which is always fun to see. So I'll definitely look forward to that. So that's really all we have for the marketplace this week. And now with that basically concludes the end of the podcast.